Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another video here on the SSA Philosophy channel, where we, of course, dive right on into the philosophy of characters from video games to TV shows to movies, etc., etc. So, of course, in today's video, we're going to be going over, of course, the philosophy of the character known as Django Freeman. So, of course, ladies and gentlemen, as always, we're going to go on ahead and we're going to get right into this video without any further delay. So, let's go on ahead and let us get started. So always, of course, on the channel, we always go on ahead to give our introductions to our characters. So, so really in Quentin Tarantino's, movie Django Unchained. Now, Django Unchained. Now, this isn't say, just a typical Western movie. Now, see, really, it really explodes onto the screen with a, brutal portrayal of, slavery in the American South. But really, it's heartbeats, with the tale of, Django Freeman, a man really transformed by circumstance into a relentless force of vengeance and liberation. Now, of course, Django played, of course, with steely charisma by the iconic Jamie Foxx. Now, he isn't really introduced, really, in this case, as a hero because, really, we first meet him as a shackled figure. His spirit, seemingly, broken after being, ripped away from his wife. His wife known as Broomhilda. So, but however, though, beneath, the hardened exterior, it does lie, lie a spark, of defiance. Now, see, Django is no ordinary slave, but really he possesses, like, say, a keen intelligence and also a sharp memory, really honed by, the years spent, navigating, the treacherous world, of the plantation. So really, Django's path, it really intersects with Dr. King Schultz, a German bounty hunter, with a sardonic, wit and also a hidden moral compass. And really recognizing, Django's unique skills, particularly his knowledge of the outlaws that, Schultz, seeks. Now, Schultz offers Django a proposition in this case, freedom in exchange for his help. And really, what this does is that really it sets a stage for really an uneasy alliance. Because see, Django, filled by the singular purpose of reuniting with his wife, Broomhilda, and really, really embraces the opportunity, to become a hunter himself. So really, as Django, as he hones his gunslinging skills, under Schultz's tutelage, a transformation begins because really he sheds the vestiges of his past, embracing a new identity, a freed man with a lethal purpose. So really, Django's journey it isn't really about acquiring physical freedom, but really it's a reclamation of his agency, his dignity, and really his right to fight for what he loves. However, though, Django's quest is pretty much as far from straightforward, because Schultz, while a crucial ally, remains an enigma, and really their partnership is really one of, mutual dependence, laced with unspoken tensions. Schultz, his motives, I would say, overall, are shrouded in, in ambiguity. And Django, he must, like, say, constantly, navigate a world in where, trust is a scarce commodity. Now, really, the search, for Broomhilda, it really leads them to, like, really this opulent, plantation of Calvin Candy, a charismatic yet sadistic slave owner, played by, of course, the legendary man himself, Leonardo DiCaprio. So, really, in Candy's world, Candyland. Really, it's a grotesque parody of Southern hospitality. Really a facade that is masking a brutal system of exploitation. So really to infiltrate, Candy's inner circle, Django must play a dangerous game, pretty much adapting, the persona of a wealthy slave buyer. So really this like sort of forced performance, it really allows like Jamie Foxx, it really allows him to showcase, Django's like say, remarkable adaptability. Because see, Django he navigates the treacherous social landscape of Candyland, because his every word and gesture a carefully, calculated act. But really, but really beneath the surface, the embers of his rage, they simmer, and really the closer that he gets to Broomhilda, the more that his thirst for vengeance intensifies. So Django Unchained, now it's simply not say, a revenge tale, but really it's a complex exploration of identity, resilience, and also the enduring power of love. Now, Django, of course, is a contradiction. And that contradiction overall is really a freed man, bound by a singular purpose. A man that is, filled by rage, yet driven by a desire for redemption. So really his journey is really a brutal ballet of violence and cunning. And really it's a testament, to the, really to the indomitable human spirit, really in the face of unimaginable cruelty. So of course in this case, we're gonna go on ahead and dive, of course, right into the philosophy of Django himself. So really this is something I like to call really in this case, really from slave to scourge. The pretty much the existential choice of Django Unchained. So really, let's just go on ahead really to dive right on in really into really the core principles or the core tenets really of this philosophy altogether as a whole. So of course Django, this gunslinger, he's not like say a typical hero, because really he's a man that is sculpted by fire, his soul etched with the scars of slavery. So really in this philosophy, really here's what we can really capture, a lot when it comes to his essence altogether, and it's really, I mean really when it comes to like say his essence, and pretty much when it comes down, to his essence entirely. So of course the first part overall that we want to focus really in his philosophy really is that, freedom is a loaded gun. Now see, Django's liberation, it isn't really a warm embrace, but really it's a cold grip on a weapon. Because freedom, for him, it isn't really a gift, but really it's a right that he himself has to reclaim, bullet by bullet. Now the thing is this, Django, what I mean, and like, and like I said before, I mean, like he's not like your typical freed slave, because sure, like he's grateful, obviously, for Dr. King Schultz, springing him from captivity, but the thing is though is that Django, he's not like say content with just like say dusty freedom papers. But the thing is that Django, like he craves justice, because he sees the world in a way that most folks wouldn't really dare to see it. So really freedom for Django, it really ain't like say a gift or a right, but really it's more like a loaded gun. So really Django, he understands, that freedom, it ain't really a free pass, but really it's a constant struggle. Like pretty much a hair trigger proposition in a world, that's rigged against him. And really every breath that he takes, really in the South, is really a defiance, a challenge to the status quo. Now, really, he ain't free. Like he's not free really to just settle down and live easy. Like that freedom, it costs, blood, his own and others. And really, with that freedom, it comes a responsibility, responsibility to fight the system that enslaved him, and really a responsibility to protect those who can't protect themselves. So really, Django, he's got a taste, for vengeance. Really a thirst for justice that really burns hotter than any like say Southern sun. And really, he's not interested, like say, in polite conversation or really turning the other cheek. Because really, he's got a score to settle with. And I mean, in his mind, that's what he's thinking. He's got a score to settle with, and really, his freedom is the weapon that he'll use to settle it. So really, Django, he's not really like all about, a man, who's all about this rage and all about fury. But really, there's a interesting, like say, like unique cunningness to him. There's something cunning, a cunning to really him as a character. A steely, like say, glint in his eye that speaks really of a man who really has learned to survive in the harshest conditions. So really, he uses his wits as much as his fists. Manipulating a system that never really intended for a black man to be in control. So really Django's freedom, what I mean? It's a loaded gun. It's a constant threat really to, the oppressive plantation society. And really it's a symbol of hope, for those, that are yearning for a better life. A reminder that even in the darkest corners, the fight for freedom burns bright. And also another like say tenet we want to dive right on into in Django's philosophy really is that, justice is brutal poetry. So really, when it comes to Django, he doesn't really seek justice, through courtrooms, but really he writes it in blood, and really it's a harsh verse for every cruelty inflicted upon him and his own kind, and really his revenge is really a twisted, like say, reflection of the savagery, that he himself endured. So really, Django, he wasn't really a man who shied away from violence himself because he's seen the brutality of slavery firsthand. Endured its dehumanize, pretty much endured its dehumanization. So really, for him, justice wasn't a civilized concept, spouted in courtrooms, but really it was a primal necessity. A fierce reply to a world gone mad. And the thing about Django is that, he wasn't really, really when it comes to Django, when it really comes to this, like, say, part of his philosophy, when it comes to his philosophy really as a whole, when you think about it, it wasn't really all about the vengeance. But really, vengeance, while though it fueled his fire, while it did fuel his fire, but really what it was more about is that it was really about, evening the scales, pretty much delivering a dose of the suffering that, had been inflicted upon him and countless others. So really he saw himself as really a kind of like a poet, etching like say a message, but a message in blood, a message that resonated with the crack of a whip and the scream of a tormented slave. Now, it was brutal, yes, but in Django's eyes, it was also necessary because the system was corrupt, built on the backs of the enslaved. Justice wouldn't come, couldn't come through polite channels, through lawyers and judges who turn a blind eye to the barbarity. But really, it had to be something loud, something undeniable. And really, it had to be a brutal poem scrawled across the face of a cruel world. So really, Django, he wasn't a hero like in the traditional sense, but he was. He wasn't like a morally pure hero at that. But really, he was a man who understood, the brutal reality of his world, and in that brutal reality, he found like a sort of twisted kind of justice, a justice as forceful and unforgettable as the scars etched upon his soul. And also another tenet that we want to really go over and cover in this case of his philosophy really is that forgiveness is a luxury the oppressed can't afford. Now, what does this really mean exactly? That, forgiveness is a luxury the oppressed can't afford. Now, the thing is this, Django holds no space for forgiveness because in his mind, it's a luxury for those who haven't had, their humanity stolen. Because really, his heart is a steely trap, sprung shut on mercy. So really in this brutal calculus of slavery, forgiveness wasn't a currency Django possessed. Because really, like think about this. Like every lash, every humiliation, every stolen year chipped away at that concept itself. So really to forgive the architects of his suffering, it really felt like surrendering the last shred of his dignity, stained by the sins of the South. So really, how could he, wash clean without holding them accountable? So really, Django, the thing is that he wasn't naive. He wasn't really naive, really. Because he understood, the seductive power of vengeance. Because it pulsed his vein. Really, it pulsed in his veins, and really like this righteous fury. Promising solace. But vengeance, as he knew, it could be a double-edged sword. And like the South, it thrived on, perpetuating the cycles of violence, becoming consumed, by the hate and really replicating the systems that really oppressed him, wasn't freedom, but really it was a gilded cage. So really if forgiveness was a luxury and vengeance was a trap, what path remained is a question. So really Django, like he envisioned a third way, not absolution, but really acknowledgement. See, he wouldn't forgive his captors, for their sins, but he wouldn't let them define him either. Because really, he'd take their brutality and he would transmute it into strength, and he would forge his own definition of freedom. So really, this wasn't about, like, say, turning a blind eye, but really, it was about using his hard-won freedom, really to fight for a future where such barbarity wouldn't exist. So really, he fight for every stolen life, for every person denied, their basic humanity. And really, his fight, it wouldn't be an act of vengeance, but really a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. So really, in this case, like really, Django's path, really, it wouldn't be something that would be easy, because there'll be days when the weight of the, pretty much there'll be days when the weight of his own past, it threatened to consume him. But really, in those moments, he remembered the faces of those that he lost, the taste of stolen liberty. And really, he channeled that pain into purpose, into building a world where forgiveness, it wouldn't be a luxury, but really a birthright. So for Django, you know, forgiveness, wasn't really like, say, in his mind, an act of surrender, but really a future to be earned. And really, it was the hope that one day no one would have to choose between vengeance and self annihilation. But really, it was the dream of a world where freedom wouldn't come at the cost of forgiveness, but a world worthy of being forgiven. And also, to dive into another tenet of his philosophy, another part you want to focus on in this case really is that, dignity is earned through defiance. So really Django, he reclaims his dignity, not by passively enduring, but by actively defying. So really he refuses to be a victim, transforming his rage into a weapon of defiance. So really Django's journey, really throughout the film, it really is fundamentally about reclaiming his dignity, a concept stolen from him by his enslavement. So really he isn't simply just seeking freedom, but really the right to be treated as a man deserving of respect. So really this is evident in several different scenes in the movie itself. So really in this case, like for example, like, choosing his own name. So really when Django, like when he's offered, like say the chance, to choose a name for himself, he doesn't really like say pick a slave name, but he chooses Django, signifying his own identity. And then another part also is like, Django learning how to fight, because really his mastery of violence is not really just about, survival, but really about empowerment because he uses his own skills really to defend himself and really really to defend himself and others, taking control of his own narrative. And also, of course, the Mandingo fight. Now, obviously, Django refuses, of course, pretty much overall, like say to pretty much refuses to participate, really like say in this brutal Mandingo fight. Really an act, that pretty much would simply dehumanize him, and really he fights to preserve his own dignity, even like say in the face of violence. And then also when it comes to him, choosing his reward, so really when offered a hefty sum of money, he still like say insists on, rescuing, like pretty much, insist on rescuing Broomhilda instead, showing that his sense of worth is not defined by money. And also, really, when it comes to Django, really Django, like I mean, really, when it comes to like his dignity, pretty much his dignity as a core motivation, like his fight for dignity, it really transcends revenge, because while he does seek retribution for the wrongs done to him and Broomhilda, his primary motivation is to reclaim his stolen humanity, because he wants to be recognized and respected as a man, not a property. And I want to say that again. He wants to be recognized and respected as a man, not property, but as a man. And really, Django, because really, like his pursuit of dignity, it really extends, to his wife, Broomhilda as well, because really rescuing her is not really just about personal gain, but really it's about restoring her dignity as a free woman. And really their escape together is really a testament really to their shared belief in the importance of dignity. So really in this case, this part of Django's philosophy really is a powerful message about the importance of self-worth and the fight against oppression. And really it reminds us that true freedom, it goes beyond the absence of the chains. But really it's about the right to be treated with respect and dignity. And also another part we want to really cover in this case, in this philosophy, really is that, really, love is the wisp of redemption in the dark. Now, what does this really mean exactly? So really, Django, like his wife Broomhilda, really she is the flickering candle in Django's storm, because his love for her, a fragile ember amidst the rage, it really becomes his reason to fight for a future, not just for vengeance. So really, Django, like his love story in Django Unchained, is really far from conventional because really, what I would say in this case is that really it's a love that is forged in resilience. Filled by a burning desire for freedom, and ultimately a force that redeems him. So really, how can we overall understand this part of Django's philosophy? How can we understand it so we can overall use this whenever we are in, like, say, in this kind of position ourselves. So really in this case, when it comes to love, love, can be like, say, something as like of a guiding force for us. Because see, Django, like his love for Broomhilda, it really transcends more, pretty much, transcends, like, say, the mere affection, because really it's the reason for his journey, the fire that propels him through unimaginable dangers. So really, he's a man that is defined by his past, but Broomhilda becomes his future, his purpose. And then really when it comes to, like, say, love as redemption, because see, Django, his world has been one of violence and cruelty. So really his love for Broomhilda, it really becomes a chance to break free from that cycle. So really by rescuing her, he doesn't just save her, but he saves a part of himself, choosing love and compassion over vengeance. And really when it comes to love as a declaration of, of selfhood, Django exists in a world that denies his humanity, and really loving Broomhilda is an act of defiance. So really, it asserts his right to love and to fight for her, and really to be a man that is worthy of her love. So really, love, so really, when it comes to love, love as earned, and not given. So really, Django, like he doesn't really expect, Broomhilda's love, you know, because really he earns it, through his courage, his determination, and unwavering commitment to saving her. So really their love story really in this case is really one of, mutual respect, and really is one of shared struggle. So really in this case, love for Django. So really when it comes to Django, love for him is not passive, but really it's a motivator. It's a reason to fight. And he doesn't really shy away from violence, but it's always in a pursuit, in pursuit of his love, a means to an end, not an end in itself. So Django's love story is definitely unconventional. Really, it's a love born in captivity and tested by violence. But really, it's that very struggle that defines his philosophy. Because love is his redemption, his purpose, and also is a testament, to the enduring power of human connection. So really, Django, when it comes to this part in his philosophy as a whole, really it's a brutal dance between, vengeance and liberation. Because he's a complex hero, a product of a monstrous system, forced to become a monster himself, to dismantle it. So really, Django in this case, I would say he's a storm of rage, but really within it, it flickers a spark of something more, a yearning for freedom not bought with blood, but built on love. And overall, ladies and gentlemen, that of course brings us to the conclusion here, of course, of the philosophy of Django Freeman. But of course, overall, Django Freeman, this titular, I mean, pretty much this titular character, really, of Quentin Tarantino's, Django Unchained. Really, he's a complex and really he's an unforgettable figure. And really, his journey, really throughout the film, is one of transformation, driven by a singular purpose, like rescuing his wife Broomhilda from the clutches of slavery, for example. But Django's path to vengeance and liberation is far more nuanced than pretty much is more like, say, nuanced than, like, say, a simple, revenge story. Because really for Django, because really for him, initially, he was presented, because I mean he was initially presented as a broken man, you know, and then of course he's introduced, chained and powerless, mostly because of the years of the brutal treatment that he, has had that have dulled his spirit, but a flicker of defiance remains within him. And really when Dr. King shows, when he offers, him freedom in exchange for his help, Django, he seizes this opportunity, this decision, And really, this decision it really marks a turning point for Django because Django really sheds, like, say, his slave identity, and he embraces a new role, that of a bounty hunter alongside Schultz. So, really, throughout their partnership, Django undergoes a remarkable transformation because he hones his skills with a gun, becoming a formidable force. And he also sheds his naivete about, like, say, the brutal realities of the world that he lives in. However, though, this transformation is not without cost because Django, he adapts. I mean, really, what he does is that he adopts, he adopts the violent methods that he once despised. Blurring the lines between liberator and vengeance seeker. And really, when it comes to Django, when it comes down to, like, him being a man that is torn between, like, the rage and being torn between redemption, his internal conflict really is a central theme, really, of the film itself. Because while filled by a righteous desire to free Broomhilda, his rage towards his oppressors is undeniable because the rage, really, this rage is particularly, it's evident in his confrontations with his, former slave owners, and of course the brutal, like, pretty much the brutal, like, say, Speck brothers, or the Brittle brothers in this case, and really the sadistic Calvin, Calvin Candy. So really, Django's, like, say, acts really the overall, like, say, of violence, while also satisfying, on a primal level, they do raise questions about the true path to freedom, and really the question of identity. So really when it comes to the question of identity, because see, Django's identity is constantly in flux because he's a freed slave, a bounty hunter, a husband, and ultimately a liberator. So really he grapples with the legacy of slavery and the expectations placed upon him by both white and black characters. So Schultz, he views him as, like, say, a sort of valuable tool, like, say, while Steven, the house slave at Candyland, embodies a more, like, say, cautious approach to freedom. So really through all these interactions, Django, of course, is forced really to define himself, like, on his own terms. So really in the bloody climax of the film, Django unleashes the full fury of his own transformation because really he becomes a whirlwind of violence, dismantling the institution that had sought to destroy him. While his methods may be brutal, Django's actions serve as a powerful symbol of resistance against the dehumanizing system of slavery. So really Django, his story in this case is not really a fairy tale because really he is forever marked by the trauma, of his own past. However, though, he emerges from the crucible of violence a changed man. He's a survivor, he's a warrior, and ultimately a man who carves his own path to freedom. So Django's legacy, it lies on in his defiance, his love for Broomhilda, from, really really his love for, Broomhilda, and his embodiment of the enduring human spirit in the face of unimaginable cruelty. And with all that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that of course concludes the end, of course, of this video here today. So, of course, if you did, of course, enjoy this video here today, and of course, don't forget, of course, to comment, subscribe also for more, you know, more videos and more explorations that I have. Also, like, say, having to dive deep into the minds of characters, that I've covered so far here on my channel. Pretty much characters overall that you would say, that are your favorite characters on the channel. And also, make sure that you also know, and also make sure you hit the notification bell, to be notified of pretty much pretty much every video that I make, you know, on the channel, just to stay updated all together overall, to check out my latest videos in the long term, pretty much in the long term, you know. And with all that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that is all. So overall, I hope you all have a wonderful and blissful and beautiful day. And with that being said, always remember, ladies and gentlemen, and always remember this every time, to always be smooth, to always be steady, and to always be aggressive. Peace.